was so happy. I was so relieved.
For months, Megan Bell has been fighting for a mask mandate for all students in the Palm Beach County School District.
Mandatory masking is going to keep them a lot safer.
And over the weekend, parents received a note from the superintendent updating the district's mask policy, now making facial coverings required inside schools and on buses for all students, unless a parent or guardian chooses to opt out.
For him to implement this days before school is just very concerning.
Sean Sykes is sending his 7th grader back to school Tuesday and will choose to opt out, meaning he is sending a signed note to his son's first period teacher saying he does not want his son to wear a mask.
There's no mask mandate. All he did was change the wording. It's still optional.
The superintendent also saying all district staff will be required to mask up with no option to opt out, adding these changes are for the well-being of all students and staff as coronavirus cases rise and the Delta variant infects more children.
What it has done now, it has given the teachers, it's put them in a very, very tough spot, and that's who we're going to start advocating for.
But Bell says she supports teachers having to wear a mask and the updated policy, with many adults and children still not vaccinated.
It's a whole lot better than, what we had last week. So I feel thankful for that.
Michael Williams here live. I was with you on the newscast just moments ago, and now we are on our Facebook platform, our digital platforms, and I have the pleasure of talking live with the St. Lucie County Schools Superintendent, Wayne Gent. We appreciate you being with us, sir.
Glad to be here, Michael. Happy to be here.
Really the Dean of Superintendents regionally, and of course, a former stint as the Palm Beach County Schools Superintendent. So you have wide and varied experience, and we know it's been a year like no other for you. We'll take some questions. We'll see questions from people popping up, and as long as they're on topic, we will do that. I've got T.A. Walker here, our brilliant producer, and of course, all of you know him for all of his great work helping me out here. Let's begin, sir, for St. Lucie County. We're talking about 40,000 students. Now, it's all in-person learning this year. We're all back to school. What is the mask policy? I know there's a board meeting tomorrow, but parents, a lot of them confused, a lot concerned. What's the mask policy in your estimation going to be? What do you believe it should be for St. Lucie County schools?
We're going into school tomorrow. It's going to be, we're highly recommending to parents to put masks on their children, but that is a parent choice. And so it's going to be up to the parents to do that. But our current policy on what's in place is that it's highly recommended, but it's a parent decision if they choose not to have their child masked up.
And in fact, you cannot make it anything less than a parent decision, given Governor DeSantis's executive order that forbids mandates. So you're strongly encouraging, but cannot require. You can sign and have that opt-out.
Exactly. And I think that's real important for the parents to understand that they've got free choice in this matter. They control what happens with their own child. There may be other policies that they don't control within the school district, but whether their child wears a mask or not is really in the hands of the parents. And in St. Lucie County, we're strongly recommending that.
Let me ask you, it's an option from your perspective as a professional who's been doing this many, many years, superintendent. What is your message of what you'd like to see parents doing based on everything you know about COVID? And also Douglas Baber saying you did a wonderful job last year and you really are ready for 2021. So we'll have comments popping up here and there, but go ahead.
Well,
what do you urge parents to do? Don't forget, we have the law, but what do you strongly want to see parents do based on all that you've seen? It's their choice, but what would you like?
I think parents have to be comfortable in their decision. I think there's nothing wrong with being conservative, particularly if your child hasn't been vaccinated. I don't think there's anything that you lose by erring on the side of caution and placing a mask on the student. They can take them. This is only for indoors. You have mask breaks in classes. If there's class changes, you can take them off as long as you're away from other folks. So it's, what we've done in the past, because I can read you a study, and there's a Wall Street Journal editorial that just came out that talks about masks, and it's got doctors on there that say that it really should be fourth in a mitigation strategy, and that you should have air purification systems and children staying home when sick and other things like that. And then you can find another study that came out in June at Duke that says that masks do make a difference. Now, the Duke study came out before this surge occurred. So you get conflicting information. It's tough for a parent. You get conflicting information depending upon what channel you watch on cable news. and parents struggle with this, and I recognize that, and I struggle as well as a grandparent with two school-age grandkids starting school Wednesday in Martin County, for a fact, and so you really have got to do your homework. But I don't think there's anything with the erring on the side of caution to make sure your children are protected, to see what happens over the next several weeks.
Denise Dublin says, will virtual ever become an option again if positivity rates increase even more? Where do we stand on that, sir?
Well, right now, there's no virtual options. What we'll be doing in our district is that if a child is test positive and has to go home, or if a student has to be quarantined, then we've got a computer that we'll give them, and then there's an online platform. It's called Canvas, and then they can follow they won't see their teacher live, but they'll see their lessons. So it's kind of like lessons coming home with them, except they'll be online, and then they'll turn that back into their teacher. Whether we go back to total online, we have Florida Virtual School in St. Lucie County. We have a program called Mosaic as well, which is an online program. So I think online learning is here to stay. It's not for everyone. It's for some students, and they thrive in that environment. The majority of kids need to be in front of a student. Need to be in front of a teacher. Sure. We saw that this year with the decline in our scores, across the state, and in our local counties as well.
That's an excellent point. We're going to talk a little bit more about what they call the COVID slide. I know you have real concerns, and everybody's trying to position academic resources to help students catch up. We will definitely be talking about that as we move on, and TA and I will continue to look for, in fact, Phelan Lawfully asked, perhaps we can put up, why won't you be implementing 6-foot social distancing? And I want to emphasize some of these questions may be from parents we can't see from our stream, may not be parents in St. Lucie County, but let me ask, what will protocol look like in school in terms of distancing, in terms of protocols? We've talked about masks. Let's talk about that. And also, let's begin that before you talk about protocols. Will staff and teachers be required to wear a mask?
No, they're not required to wear a mask. That's something that'll be discussed as well tomorrow. Again, I'm strongly urging teachers and staff members to get vaccinated. That's the safest thing that we have going on. We've got teachers that have gotten infected over the summer, haven't even been involved in a school setting yet. And so I think that the vaccinations for adults and staff members is something that's very, very important, and something that we'll look at and monitor and discuss. The one question that came in that is from a parent from St. Lucie County, and I appreciate her concern, and she has written to the board and to myself in the past. And again, that's important that we hear from the parents. Our protocols will be very similar to last year. We'll have more students back on campus this year. So we try to practice the 6-foot social distancing, but in all honesty, that's just not practical in some settings. So you do the best that you can with that. You've got the school buses, you've got where it's impossible to do that on school buses. You have the students that are in a closed, confined space. Again, you'd think that wearing the mask there would be to their best benefit. The school center will follow the one-way hallways. We try to spread out cafeteria breakfast and lunchtimes the best that we can. And in the classrooms, spread out, again, dependent upon the class size and the number of students that are in that class, to do the best that we can to social distance the students.
Superintendent Gent, again, Wayne Gent, Superintendent of St. Lucie County Public Schools, some roughly coming up 40,000 students in St. Lucie County, an ever-growing county, and formerly the Palm Beach County School Superintendent, speaking specifically to St. Lucie County, but you really have a holistic view as those of you who join us from St. Lucie County. Bring in your questions. We appreciate it. We're putting up comments as well, and we thank you for that. Superintendent, I want to clarify one other thing because we're having this national debate too. Are vaccinations being required? Do you want them to be required for students or for teachers and staff?
Right now, no, they're not required. I think that's their individual decision to make. But my position as the superintendent, I strongly encourage those vaccinations. I think it's the best method that we have to keep our children and each other safe as well, particularly from this Delta variant. And so, I encourage that, but no, it is not mandated at this time.
Superintendent, I know TA will find a comment that I think can help express how scared some parents are. Let's speak to that aspect of it right now. And then I do want to talk, I thought you made a great, Karen Stackland Z says, I'm a St. Lucie parent, says, make it a requirement. We were talking about masks and vaccines. So I suspect she may have just been talking about vaccines, but also many want the mask to be a requirement. What do you say to the parents? And we're looking through comments here, my producer TA and I, to the parents who say, I am really, really scared about sending my kids to school with all that's going on. How do you allay those concerns? Can you even do so?
I think it's important that they look out for the best interest of their child. And so we have things on our webpage, information on our district webpage. So they're going to come to school and they're going to be nervous. And we're going to calm them down, and we've got protocols in place. But I think what's really important is that, don't send your child to school sick. Make sure we're doing the hand washing etiquette. We've put in a new, what's called a bipolar ionization air filtration system. A lot of words there that takes out 99.9 of the virus that could be in the air. And it's proven effective. So we're taking all the steps that we can to make it as safe as we can make it for our children. We had an extensive summer school this year. We had summer school in every one of our campuses, from kindergarten all the way up to 12th grade. And we're very successful with that. And even at the end, in the last 2 weeks of July, and we just ended last week, we saw that the protocols that we had in place were working. Last year, our protocols worked. We didn't see any outbreaks in our school centers. They were all brought in from the outside, and then when students would be quarantined, we'd have a football team that would be quarantined. We wouldn't see any spreading incidents. And so we're hopeful that this year, again, that if we follow these protocols, if the parents monitor their children at home and make sure they don't come to school sick, adults don't come to school sick, do all the etiquettes that we have, all the protocols that we have, we think, we're confident that our schools are safe for our students. And that's proven last year, and it was proven this summer in our summer programs.
Karen Schneider McGregor says as much. I'm happy to have my children in the St. Lucie public school system more than a decade, and I trust them essentially. You can read the rest for yourself. And TA, if you go up a little in the thread at about 637, it does speak to a teacher who wrote in about teachers and their trepidation, saying, Donnie McCarthy says teachers have trepidation as well. We know parents send their kids to school sick all the time. What do you say to teachers as well, who also have their own set of concerns coming into tomorrow?
Same thing I'm saying to the parents.
Teachers and staff.
Yeah, I'm saying to the teachers, the same thing I'm saying to the parents of the kids. They need to monitor their behavior. We've had several, what the CDC guidelines out there and what they're saying to avoid crowds. Some of our teachers, unfortunately, that have tested positive over the last 2 weeks have not even been in a school setting yet. We'll start the school year out with quarantines. So they've got to police themselves, just like the parents need to police the children. One of the other things that we're doing in our district is we have like a daily wellness check, so that even though we want it done at home, I know that that's not going to happen every day in every case where a parent's going to monitor that child walking out the door. We encourage that. That's for that child's best protection. But we also have that going on in the school center then, when the teachers will look around the classroom first period and throughout the day to monitor kids and to see if anybody has any kind of influenza-like symptoms. And if they do, they're sent out of the classroom immediately and down to the clinic.
And what about the same kind of protocols for wellness to check for teachers and staff each day?
Absolutely. Yeah, they monitor themselves, and we've made that real clear. We work with our bargaining partners as well to help us with that if you've got those symptoms and you're not feeling well, stay home.
It's an honor system, though. Should it be required for testing for teachers and staff?
I don't think at this point, no.
Okay. Superintendent Gent, again, we know that it's easy to ask the questions. What you're dealing with deals with issues that parents have about making decisions for their own children, about the huge healthcare issues, about learning issues, and we do want to talk about those in a few moments. I do want to go back to the COVID protocols. If you can amplify a bit more on COVID protocols, what you'll do, and what happens if, as did sometimes happen last year in a limited sense, if COVID crops up, a student's sick, what is in place? A student in, say, I'll make up a classroom, in a 5th grade classroom, has COVID. What, for that student, obviously they go out of the classroom. What about the rest of the kids in the classroom? What happens if you have it identified in a school? What are we going to see then?
All right, and thanks, Michael. Great question, and I know that's on everybody's mind. What we do have is seating charts for the students. We have seating charts on the school buses, and we have seating charts in the classroom, so that if a student is identified and through the health department is notified that they've tested positive, then we'll do the contact tracing. And then those students that have been within 3 feet for more than 15 minutes is the standard that's being used, then they'll be notified by the health department. Now, if a child or a student is vaccinated and they're exhibiting no symptoms, or a teacher, then they're not going to be quarantined. If they haven't been vaccinated, then they'll be notified by the health department, and they will be sent home and then quarantined for a period of time. And then there's different guidelines that are followed on that depending upon what steps that they take, whether they remain, whether they're showing any signs or not showing any signs. So again, the best method for those kids that are 12 and older is to be vaccinated, because then they lose, if they show no symptoms, then they're not going to have to go home and they're going to be in the school. Same goes for employees and staff members.
Karen Yvonne Hamilton, and I know you've touched on it, but we do have people on this streaming feed coming in again and again. So again, it's a pleasure to have Superintendent Wayne Gent, St. Lucie County Public Schools Superintendent, with us, about 40,000 strong, give or take students there, growing county. And Karen Yvonne Hamilton says, talking about kids again, what about, in all caps, teachers? Clearly, a lot of concern there. And for those who are just joining the feed, just joined the streaming feed, you're hearing it from your teachers. They're scared. A lot of them are. And how are you going to play that? And what happens if a lot don't show up?
Well, they're showing up by contract. They have to show up. They've made a decision now. If they at any time choose that, this isn't really what need to be, and that's fine as well. But we're concerned about the kids and the teachers. So if it's coming across that it's only about the students, that's not true. It's about all staff members. I'm responsible for the health and welfare of everybody that walks onto a campus or drives a school bus or cleans dishes in a cafeteria. That's our priority. And
that may be the questioner, that may be the questioner focusing on kids. So I'm glad they're keeping me on the straight and narrow, that it's not just kids. That's not your answers. I know you've been holistic, but right. Go ahead, sir.
Well, that's it. That's true. So the answer is really about people that are in the buildings themselves. Parents can control what their children are doing. Adults can control what adults are doing. And unfortunately, sometimes bad decisions are made, I had family members at a wedding this weekend. We tried to be very, very careful. So you've got to be careful. We only have the students 6-7 hours a day. There's the other rest of the time that they're not there. So these things aren't just for the school day. We're trying to keep our school safe. What we did last year on our protocols and what we did this summer worked for us, worked for our teachers, worked for our students, and that's what we'll continue to do.
Superintendent Gent, Sean Hossein writes in again, you've touched on it. Again, we have people coming in and out of the feed, says, please, we need virtual class as an option. And given where we are with Delta, none of us have a crystal ball, but if things continue apace, all of us hope they don't. Candidly, do you think virtual school is going to have to be an arrow you draw out of your quiver again, and perhaps sooner than you would have thought?
Well, virtual schools are an option right now, and that's a decision that parents would need to make. Now, whether you go full scale to what's called My School Online, what we did last year, where you had, at the beginning of the year, 40% of the students at home, and then then more and more came back into the building. I don't anticipate that happening this year. You never say never, because you don't know what's going to, I don't know. I don't have the crystal ball. I'm not Gene Dixon, so I can't predict that. But right now, I don't see that occurring. What we can stress right now is making sure, and it's like beating, just the same message, but I think it's important and it's real simple. Parents need to look out for their children. They need to be conservative. Those that can be vaccinated need to be vaccinated. We need to follow all the health and safety protocols. That includes adults and staff members. This past week, we welcomed our teachers back. I was in many of the schools. The majority of the schools, the teachers were unmasked. In some of the schools, the teachers were social distance. In some of the schools, they were up on each other hugging because they haven't seen each other. And, as we watch the news and we're watching what's going on, those kind of behaviors, we just have to be very, very cautious to protect everybody in the school building.
Superintendent Gent, I want to be very clear, because it's a little bit confusing, at least to this reporter, and I think some of the audience. All the schools, including yours, have said in-person learning this year. That's what we're going back to. And how many students are signed up for in-person learning as a percentage? But you say virtual is still an option, and I know it is, but right now, how many are signed up to be in person? And if parents are hearing this, say, well, I'm going to run in tomorrow and sign up for virtual. I want to be very clear on where we are with all of that.
Well, that's what's called a Florida virtual school. And then they would contact, it's a Florida virtual school. It's statewide. Okay. It's a statewide system of virtual learning. And that we don't really have any control over that. And then if parents were interested, they could go to the webpage, or they could contact their school and be directed to that. But I would encourage them. I don't think there's a substitute for one-on-one, for face-to-face learning. And again, virtual is not for everyone. We saw that happen this year. The students that probably could least afford to be at home were at home, and there was significant learning loss. But again, that's an individual family choice that they make, and we respect whatever that choice will be for them.
Nigel Johnson raises this question again as people come in. Superintendent Gent, the school board has the constitutional right and duty to protect the health of its students and teachers. If the cases in Florida continue down the current course, will you make the recommendation to the board to mandate mask? And now, again, we have the governor's executive order, but that's a point blank question to you, Superintendent. Take that one, please.
Okay. It depends on what the information that the data is showing. But whether I mandate mask or recommend mask or require mask, parents still have the choice not to wear the mask. So whether you strongly recommend the mask, the parents still control this process. The parents will control whether their child is going to wear that mask or not. I'm strongly encouraging parents to take that option at this time. And then we'll just have to work with our health department, our local hospitals, our healthcare providers to see what the next steps could possibly be.
Superintendent Gent, again, you're speaking specific policies in St. Lucie County schools. I know you can speak in a larger sense because of your broad background in places like Palm Beach County and as somebody who's been a lifelong educator. But I do want to ask, before we move into the academic concerns that have existed since the start of COVID, go back again to if people are scared, students start not showing up. What do you have in place if bus drivers get worried and aren't showing up? If staff at school is not showing up? If you have more teachers than you anticipate, contracts aside, who aren't showing up? Are you ready to deal with that with substitutes and with other methods to get the year going well? And of course, that's a question for every district, certainly not just St. Lucie County. You're kind enough to join us. But from your particular policy perch, what can you say?
Yeah, we're ready. We've talked about this since last year, what this year would look like, and especially in the spring and in the summer, so that we've got we're pretty much starting in great shape tomorrow. I'm not concerned about that. We also have long-term substitutes that have been in our school centers and serve us well for the buses as well. We've got what I call a bench of able-bodied folks that are ready to go in case there is an outbreak or folks are unable to work because they've gotten sick, whether it's from COVID or just regular illnesses that are there. So I feel good about where we are. We didn't have any issues last year. We went into this. It's something that we work on. We sometimes contact folks that have retired from the system that still have the qualifications to drive a bus. They have their CDL license. They're ready to go as well. So we've got. I'm not concerned about that. I feel very confident that based upon what we did last year and the steps we've taken now, we're ready to go and we'll be fine.
You're going to be dealing with the emotional piece of this. Sandy, just a few lines up, TA, talked about unmasked kids saying they should have to go private. It's just a little bit above there, saying unmasked children should have to go private. And the kind of emotional Eddie's encouraged emotional unmasked kids should have to go private, says Sandy. Every student deserves a safe learning environment. Other parents, and I know TA can find comment along that line too, are saying it's our right, our choice for our children. How are you going to navigate as a superintendent the emotional currents that are coming your way, and I would say the way of every educator, whether it's St. Lucie, Martin, Okeechobee, Palm Beach County, Indian River, around the state? The task is gargantuan, how you're going to corral that and try and figure out a way to keep everybody feeling good about getting back to school. Well,
here's what's important. It's a 50-50 issue for the most part in our country, and probably in our state, it's pretty close as well. That noise needs to stay outside. What we need to be about is when those boys and girls come into school tomorrow, and when that teacher takes them in the classroom, we've got to get back to the teaching and learning aspect, and to accelerate learning, to get these kids caught up, especially those that have lost that. So I thoroughly understand the angst and what's going on. We've got a political divide. We've got a cultural war, if you will, over this issue. And that needs to be directed to me and to our elected officials, our school board members. Leave the teachers out of it. Let them do their jobs of teaching and learning, and direct all of that towards us. That's why I was, welcome the opportunity to come on your show or to the Facebook Live program this evening.
Well, we certainly appreciate that. And I've promised, and now we can talk about mask and COVID protocol a little bit more on the backside of my next set of questions, but it's crucially important to talk about the fact last year, students learning at home. We've seen national studies, grave concern about a lot of students perhaps being set back. Yes, there are those who have thrived in that environment, but there's broad concern that many students, again, not talking St. Lucie County per se and alone, but regionally, statewide, and nationally, who have slipped the COVID slide academically. What are your concerns? What are studies showing you about the slippage academically that may have happened last year, despite the very best efforts by a whole lot of people, and all of you are heroes on the front lines? And what are you doing in terms of extra resources to help children catch up, regain what they may have lost academically, and move forward?
And that's probably that, and the safety are the two. Those are the two issues right there. The teaching and learning aspect of it, and then those children that have fallen behind through no fault of their own. What can we do then to accelerate them and to get them, not remediate, but really accelerate and get them where they need to be? So in St. Lucie County this summer, we had what was called learning adventure camps, and so we targeted certain students, those students that were struggling, whether they were at home doing the My School option or whether they were face-to-face during the course of the year, and brought them into the summer program to try to help accelerate and to catch them up. Then with some of the dollars that will come down from the federal government, there's really 3 layers that have come down. We will be able to staff our school centers based upon the data, and the data just came out, within the last 2 weeks, and then to staff our schools appropriately with additional teachers, with additional coaches, instructional coaches. You've got tutoring programs. So we've got that covered in our school centers, but that's going to be a large task. And, we're starting out now, again, similar to last year. So it's very, very concerning that when students are quarantined or students are not feeling well and they're not in our school centers, that's going to be exaggerated, and we're going to have more of that. And, we were hoping we were coming back to normal. We were hoping that we were going to be, in good shape. So we've got systems in place. We've got programs. We've got staff members that are in place, but it's really going to be looking at the data, the weekly data, looking at the assessments or the tests that students are taking. And it's like I call it's like a physical exam. And then whatever the deficiencies are, whatever we have to do to address that challenge, we've got the resources ready then to go in, whether that's for an individual classroom, a school, or whatnot.
What is the data showing you, at least early on, the academic data? What are your concerns having seen that relatively fresh data from just out 2 weeks ago?
Well, the trend was downward. We had some areas in some schools that did well, and we had others, that went and depends upon the grade level, depends upon, the students themselves. We're still breaking that data down, but over from the state of Florida to almost every county, you saw a downward trend. Not as severe maybe as we first anticipated, but there was overall a downward trend. And so now when we start our assessments, when the students come in and we do our diagnostic and we do, like when we were in school, your weekly assessments, your weekly tests, we'll be able to find out where the students are and then, bring the remedy, bring the cure, if you will, get the lessons in front of them to try to accelerate that learning. But that's going to be a long, drawn-out process for some students. For others, they'll be very resilient and they'll be able to move quickly. Others will take additional work and additional effort and additional strategies.
We're seeing people ask how many new cases a day are needed to impose a mask mandate. You've talked about that. Jacqueline Surloff, just above that question, says, I'm not precisely sure. And of course, I can't know if all of you are St. Lucie County parents because it's open to everybody. Yes, there's absolutely a quarantine time period. This was discussed at open houses. What about quarantines? Did you have open houses to discuss quarantines? And if so, what's the guideline there?
Well, there were the open houses events, and the basic guidelines that are coming down from the state, from the Department of Health, from the local Department of Health, really determines it's an individual case based upon whether that student's been vaccinated or not, based upon what's going on in the family and the households. I mean, it can we've got a tree, like you will, like a flow chart, depending upon whether you're symptomatic or you're asymptomatic. Whether you've been vaccinated, unvaccinated. So it's really depends upon that individual case. And then we work very closely for the direction and the guidance from our local health department.
Sarah Sievert Suarez says, and this really helps crystallize the discussion. She says, what is the big deal? If you want your kids to wear a mask or not, it's your choice as a parent. Then we equally have a comment that was just above that one, a parent talking about, in general, another defy the governor and mandate mask. You talked about it a few moments ago, but it's impossible to keep the sense of emotion and concern outside the school fences. It would seem to me that's going to be your primary challenge. And you very willingly said, listen, if you've got issues like that, bring them to me. But it would seem to me that from day one on, how are you going to overtly deal with that? You're going to have a lot of people at the school board meeting. You're going to have parents after day one concerned. I've seen the comments here, some of them diametrically opposed. And I do have to ask again for those joining, how do you or any superintendent get a handle on that kind of emotion that is a mirror for real concerns on both sides of this equation? It's not going to go away.
No, it's not going to go away. And after this, there will be other issues as well. So what we can do is put our policies in place. We can stress what I've been stressing here, regarding staying home when you're sick, regarding hand washing, regarding social distancing, all of those things where parents check their child. We'll do those things in the school. Our mitigation practices have worked for us in the past. They worked this summer. I have every confidence that they're going to work for us going future. And that's what my focus will be on with our teachers so that they can teach those kids in the classroom. Then we also follow what the data is and what the science is and what is the health department saying. You try to take the politics out of this, and that's important. We're trying to look at this, and like I said, for every study you do, I can get data on this side of the aisle, I can get data on that side of the aisle. So at the end of the day, you got to make the decision that you think's in the best interest of those students and those teachers and those staff members, and then you go with that. But you continually, it's going to be fluid. You continually monitor daily what's going on. We have our webpage. We'll have the daily. It'll list the positive cases. It'll list the quarantines by school. We did that last year to be totally transparent and then to work closely with those parents and work with our health department to make the right decisions.
Want to ask in a moment. I want to ask about this question that popped up. And again, thank you for your forbearance. In the streaming world, questions come in, people join the audience. Nigel Johnson asked, then I want to ask you about athletics. So important to so many. Nigel Johnson asked, if you don't mind reiterating, do St. Lucie County Public Schools have the infrastructure readily available to make classes wholly virtual if cases become worse? Now, I know that you do have a program where people can be virtual within your system, but to Nigel's question, and for those just joining, if you don't mind, sir, answer that one again.
And I have to be very careful how I answer this because then it can be misinterpreted. We spun on a dime last year and pivoted and were able to do a totally virtual program. We did that in the spring 2 years ago, and then last year we had a totally virtual program. So that infrastructure is still in place. That would be a decision that we would have to look at the state legislation, at the governor's office, at the commissioner of education. So in answer to the question, do we have the infrastructure? Yes, I have the infrastructure.
And let me, but you're clear, you have the infrastructure, but your strong preference is that if at all possible, which is exactly what you're doing, is to get students back in the classroom. And of all the students eligible to be in the classroom, is it 90+% who you anticipate showing up tomorrow signed up to be back in school?
Absolutely. Our district office was packed today with parents that were registering their children. It's been packed for the last 2 weeks, more so than I've seen in the past. And so, we're ready. We're ready to go. The buses are rolling out in the morning. I'll be at the bus loop around 5:45 at the bus compound, and we're ready to go. We're ready to start.
I want to ask, in fact, before I do, back to school special, Ashley Walters, Mike Trim tonight, 7:30 on WPTV NewsChannel 5 to help answer a lot of the questions you have at home, to look at back to school. We're going to be all over the region tomorrow. And of course, thankful to have the St. Lucie County Schools Superintendent Wayne Gent, a familiar face to educators and parents, families in our region, and really throughout the state, a longtime veteran educator. We'll let you go in a few minutes with that early start in the morning. But I do want to ask you on the athletics side, for parents who are saying, how will sports be? What will attendance be allowed to be or not be at games? But first, to students who are involved in student athletics, how's that going to look? Will they still be participating full on right now? Where are we? Then the part about parents and family, friends coming to those kind of games.
Yeah, great question. And athletics are so important, and as well as all extracurricular activities. We're back to normal with athletics right now. Again, monitoring it very, very closely because football is a close contact sport. The young men and young women in volleyball, they're in the locker rooms. You've got other kids there, trainers, staff members. And so we're still, just like we're doing in the classroom, we're going to do the same thing with athletics to be very, very careful, monitoring the kids, making sure everybody's, is healthy. These are outdoor events. So right now there's nothing in place to curb the crowds. We'll again continue to monitor that, but athletics are going on. We'll go as normal.
Superintendent, given your early hour, first of all, we greatly appreciate you being with us. I would like to give you a chance for your closing thoughts, and not just with the hat you wear as the superintendent of St. Lucie County Schools, but your former role. You headed Palm Beach County Public Schools as an educator, closely in touch with trends. You have the academic concerns, you have the health concerns, you have the emotional outpouring, which is understandable on all sides. Is there a broader message you want to leave the audience with? Nothing will ever be settled finally and fully. We don't know where the Delta variant's going. We don't know where any of this is going right now. What message on the eve of the start of school for parents who are scared about sending their kids to school if everybody's not masked up or vaccinated, to those who are saying it's my choice? You have an enormous task before you, and that's an understatement. Is there any closing words of wisdom you can give all of the St. Lucie County parents and really the broader audience tonight?
Well, first of all, Michael, thank you for letting me be on here, and thank you for picking up my hint that I got to get up early tomorrow. But,
very early.
In all seriousness, those that have known me and worked with me over the years, they know what I'm all about. I understand where the parents are coming from. I understand the angst. I have the same angst, with my grandchildren and with the students in St. Lucie County and the students in this viewing area. And the tough decisions that the superintendents and the school boards have to make. We're doing everything in our county, and I know in the surrounding counties as well, to make these schools as safe as they can be. And so we're going to monitor that. We want these kids back in school tomorrow. We're going to welcome them. We're looking forward to seeing them. We want to see them. We want to see how they're doing. We haven't talked about not just the academic needs, but the social, the emotional needs of children that have struggled. The first and best teacher should be the parent, but that's not the case for many of our children in this community and in this country. And so we try to step in there and help these kids out and do the best that we can. And all of the surrounding counties have done a remarkable job with that. So I get it. I get that as a granddad. I get it as a parent. I get it as a superintendent. I get it just as a citizen, what parents are going through, because I experienced those myself. We've got protocols in place. We're confident in our protocols. Our schools will be safe places. They'll be monitored daily. And we continue to welcome the parents' input. We want that. I appreciate them reaching out this evening as well, whether it was supportive or with the concerns. I don't take it personal. I get that. I'm just like they are. And if we have to make decisions and tough decisions, we're ready to make those as well. But we want to see these boys and girls tomorrow coming in, getting dropped off. Nobody's even talked about traffic patterns. Nobody's talked about being safe and looking for the walkers and looking for the bikers and paying close attention to what's going on. It's all been directed towards the COVID, and that's important. But there's a lot of other aspects to public education and private education that are important. And we're ready up for the task and look forward to seeing the kids and the teachers and staff members, everyone tomorrow.
And that would be your message to parents. Say, put me at ease. What you've just talked about, it's your best message. You're prepared as you can be, and try and hold as 40,000 sets of hands simultaneously. But for parents who need that hand holding and to put them at ease, that's what you're there for.
Yes, and when I hear from them, and we'll continue to communicate, and I think that's so important. Communication.
But you feel like you're ready, and for parents who need
Absolutely.
to be put at ease, you feel like you've done everything you can. The inevitable will crop up, but you feel ready to deal with it.
We get paid to be problem solvers, and I feel confident that we're ready to roll tomorrow, and we're ready.
LA Flo, a little up the line, we'll leave with her comment. She said, thank you, Mr. Gent. We appreciate you. And we'll leave and echo that line. We appreciate your time. Again, a tough job. When you signed up to be an educator all those years ago, you didn't know you'd be dealing with COVID or the enormous challenges that all of us face within and without our public school system, within and without our state, whether it's school or business or any other aspect of our lives. We appreciate as you try to navigate this as best you can, and your fellow superintendents, your teachers, your staff, parents, students. Wayne Gent, Superintendent of St. Lucie County Public Schools, will check in. I'll make an early plug, see if I can get you on To The Point later in the week, see how the first week went. But right now, go get some sleep. We appreciate your time. And before we let you go, reminding all of you at home, 7:30, WPTV News Channel 5. Ashley Walters, Mike Trim with a special report, a half-hour special talking about back to school, hoping to answer a lot of your questions as we get back underway. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.